Unfortunately, most banks these days charge you for taking money out of their bank machines, and those are called service charges. You know those little screens at the bank machine that say, this transaction will cost an additional $1.50. Do you want to proceed? Those really annoying screens. Yeah, well, those are service charges. So this clip, we're going to calculate somebody's service charges and see how much comes out of their bank account at the end of the month. Let's read our first example problem, and then I'll get you to try your own problem later on the right side of the screen. But first, Hun's Bank charges $5.95 for up to 10 bank machine transactions per month, plus an additional 75 cents per each transaction after that. Last month, he made 23 transactions. The question asks, determine the service charges deducted from Hun's account last month. Alright, so Hun's in for some bad news because his bank gives him 10 transactions for $5.95, but last month he made way more than that. He made 23 transactions in total. So we're going to see how much money comes out of his bank account. Let's get things started by listing our givens. For our givens, well, the first thing we're going to need to do is build the variables to make an equation. That's a little tip. We're going to have to make some sort of an equation later on. Now the equation is going to be made up of the initial fee per month. That's deducted from his account no matter what he does. Plus, we need to find out how many extra transactions he made in the month. And we'll use this number, the fee for those extra transactions. So I'm going to keep $5.95. I'm just going to say that that's the monthly fee. In other words, even if he makes 0 transactions, this will still be withdrawn from his bank account every month. I'm also going to make a variable called the extra transactions. I'll just say trans. So how many extra transactions did Hun make last month? Well, he's given 10, but he made 23. So 23 minus 10, that's 13. I think I'll also make a variable called extra fee. And this is how much he's charged for every one of these extra transactions. And it's given right here as 75 cents. And I think those are all the givens I'm going to need. So I'm going to move on to step 2. Let's write an equation for the service charges. The unknown that we're looking for, well, that's the service charges. I'm just going to call that SC. And what's it equal to? Well, it's the $5.95 that gets deducted no matter what. In other words, the monthly fee. But it's also the extra money that comes out of his account. For each transaction that's extra, he gets charged an additional 75 cents. But there's 13 of those. 13 times 0.75. And that will give us the total amount of money that's deducted from his account each month. In other words, the service charges. And to solve for the service charges, I'm just going to bring in my calculator and I'll type in what I see there. 5.95 plus 13 times 0.75. And then I hit enter. And I get an answer of $15.70. $15.70. And this is the total amount of money that came out of Hun's bank account last month. So it really does pay to watch how many transactions you use per month, especially if you're charged an extra fee like this, 0.75 or 75 cents. Watch those transactions. Last thing we'll do is add a concluding statement. Last month, Hun paid $15.70 in service charges. It's quite a bit. Alright, so now it's your turn to give somebody the bad news. Let's see if you can calculate the service charges for this person. Mary's bank charges $8 for up to 15 bank machine transactions per month, plus $1.25 for each additional transaction. And last month, she made 19 transactions. So determine the service charges deducted from Mary's account last month. So give that one a shot, trying the steps I showed you on the left, and I'll post the solution when you're ready. Turns out Mary's not in quite as bad a shape as Hun. Her monthly service charge was $13.